Hi, Star.
Hi, Carolyn.
It is so great to see you. I always love when we can look at each other face to face,
Yeah,
and
that's so much nicer.
isn't it? Well, because you live out of state. We don't live in the same state, so it hasn't been as easy to connect
Mm,
um in person.
Gee,
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope to
So
get it next year.
you hope to, I'm sorry, what was that?
I hope to get a new computer next year.
Yeah.
Something that takes 5 minutes, takes an hour on this thing. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's so great to see you. You know, what I have noticed from reading your posts on social media and the conversations that we've had
Hmm.
since the show dropped, this is now the sixth episode just dropped, but from the first two that originally dropped and then the ones following it, I feel like I've noticed, and tell me if this is true, that there's an excitement from your perspective, but then there's also a deep sadness
Mm.
as you think about. So talk a little bit about what this process has been like for you.
Uh, it has been anxiety causing and also healing at the same time. But I think the number one thing that's bothered me, but I'm glad to know it, is the witnesses out in Dole Valley. That's been hard to
Talk a
listen.
little, talk a little bit about that. Talk about
Well,
the witnesses.
because I really think that was Jamie. And, it kind of answers the question to me, did she suffer? If she's screaming for her life, I know she suffered. She knew she was going to die. And so, of course, it gives me answers, but it also bothers me to know that. But I'm glad that I do know it.
So you're talking about Matt McClure, who we
Mhm.
heard from his sister-in-law,
Right.
Deborah, so
Yes.
many years ago that around the time Jamie went missing, it's believed that this could have been, he saw a young woman tied between two trees, bloody, screaming for help.
Right. And in the winter,
And in the winter.
in the snow. And it's not like there were a lot of them out there in the winter in the snow. As
Hmm.
far as we know, that would be Jamie, because there aren't any others that disappeared at that time period. And and then to hear Jeannie's story, that they tried to get the police to come out and they didn't. And that's bothered me. But, it's just like everything went wrong for her that day, just everything. And I can imagine the fear. So, that's hard. That's been hard, but I'm glad I know.
Hmm. Now, you were referring to Jeannie Highfill, who you hadn't really heard about, and her
No,
husband Phil, who
right.
heard these horrific screams in the wintertime around the time Jamie went missing. And, we should say that Jamie's belongings were found 5 months after she went missing in
I,
Dole Valley by Rock Creek Bridge. And so the husband went looking for her in his vehicle, but he got stuck in a snowbank and couldn't. So I can imagine the desire to know is so strong, but then when you hear this, it's kind of torturing at the same time and disappointing, especially being a foster. You and your sister were foster children, and I always think that brings an extra closeness with your sibling, or at least it sounds like with you and Jamie, that a lot of people can't understand. Talk a little bit about how close you were.
well, we just did everything together. We went through all the trauma together. We went through multiple homes together, multiple schools together. Um, we just went through everything together, all
Mhm.
the days and the good times and the bad times. And we went through a major house fire together. I mean, we were always together. And,
Mhm.
to lose that and not know that was the hardest part, the not knowing, because, people will have said they're better about it now, but back then, it was like, well, how do you know? You know, and it's hard for people to understand that don't have a missing person there. I knew when I found out about her belongings that she was gone. I knew that. And ultimately, it's basically proved true. And I just want people to know what happened to her. And it'd be great if the killer would just tell the truth. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not holding my breath for that, but
Because at this point, you've said that it's not a punishment thing. You just want to know where she is, if he was responsible for it, which you believe that he is, right? Talk a little bit about that.
why I want to know,
No, why that at this point you're not looking, you want to just know where your sister is. You
it's
want to bring her home.
all I want to know, and the truth. And there's only one person that can truly give me that.
Hmm.
Even if he received another life sentence, we all know that's not gonna. You can't die three times and or live and die three times. That wouldn't give me anything. It wouldn't give me any closure. Just knowing, just having him admit to it, it's like I don't understand why he can't just admit to the things he's done. You know,
Hmm. I can
that's
imagine. That's so frustrating and torturous.
yeah, no remorse, no remorse. You know, I hope somebody can get to him, reach him.
Hmm. Now, we talked about episode 5. It feels like every episode, you post, and it's so great how you've, really spread the word about the show, because it's not only just about Jamie. For you, for decades, it's been about the other stolen voices. And
Oh, for sure. Like um, all those years, I just knew about the first two victims, that they came to talk to me about, and
and
you
that
know
was in Dole Valley. That was the
that
unidentified Jane
yeah,
Doe and Carol Valenzuela.
right. And I knew that Jamie was connected to them. And it just bothered me all those years that they didn't get justice. And then later when I found out, about Carol and the unidentified girl, more specifically when I found out about him, that Carol had twin baby girls, she was married, and the other one nobody knew who it was for a long time. And they ruled Jamie out, but by the same token, I wanted it to be proven because dental records can be wrong, and it wasn't really an x-ray, it was just notes to her file, handwritten notes, and I wanted them to prove it definitively with DNA.
Hmm. Now, I don't want to give too much away, because your story with investigative reporter Dan Tilkin is in episode 7, and what you guys are like powerhouses. I mean, I am like your super fan.
Okay,
And seriously, like when I think about Norma's story, and I've talked a lot about Norma's story, but I've also talked about your story, and particularly, the producer of the show, Brandon Morgan, he and I have spent the last couple years,
I know.
talking about your quiet strength and continued, I mean, just the flower in your hair, and everything about you is like, you're just a class act star. And
Oh,
I really want to thank you for always making time to talk to me and to care about all these other voices that were stolen, never giving up, even when you were, I have said this to Brandon many times about how I met you on the page and all these public disclosure documents before I actually met you, your
that's
emails. of like quietly like reminding them, and it's like a drum that beats, and how you kept everyone together with your Facebook page. How
Yeah.
does that make you feel when I say this, and you have to know that you were the glue that put everybody together or kept everybody together?
Well, that makes me feel good because if I can, we're in all in this strange club, and it's very healing to know that I can help them, know that I understand what they are going through without justice. Norma didn't get justice. The others, like Diane Gilchrist, as soon as I heard her story, I knew it was him, and I never forgot the date she disappeared. You know,
Mhm.
my son was born that
May
day. And
27th,
yeah,
1974.
yeah, exactly. So, I have a connection to all of them. They were from our hometown, most of them, Martha wasn't, but she was connected because of where she was found. And I just felt Jamie, Carol, and Martha and I were we were part of the same thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then I find out about Diane and what happened to Norma, and I mean, it just
Gloria
Maria,
Knutson,
she was a
Barbara
class,
Derry.
yeah, and Barbara Derry, and then the strange coincidence of Barbara Derry's shoes. We were all of the same generation, and it always bothered me that we had this serial killer and nobody knew, you know, nobody knew, nobody could believe that it was Forrest, and he should have been caught a long time before he was, but
And I've tried to articulate in some of the meetings and or interviews rather, and also in the podcast about what that has been like for you all about nobody knowing. And I've said when nobody knows about, or very few people know about this serial killer Warren Forrest, that means they don't know about the victims and the survivors and the families. And what has that been like for you?
for
Explain that to people.
that was really hard to not have when I didn't know for years, what happened to her, what could have happened to her. And then when the detectives first came to me in 76, I couldn't believe it was 5 years later. And I just found out about her ID because I feel like there were things I could have helped with back then,
Hmm.
and not knowing who to look to, who to go after even. And then when I found out about Forrest and there was nothing about him out there, I just thought, that's not right. Look at all he's done. And nobody knew. Nobody knew. And to think that he was living, so close to us, and I have friends that knew his wife, knew his wife's sister, and and then our classmate Gloria. I have classmates that know her, and it devastated them. And nobody knew. It wasn't like, Ted Bundy. Everybody knew about Ted Bundy. There can't be more. Well, there could be, but there's a ton of information about him, and there was nothing about Warren when I first learned of him. There was just nothing,
Hmm.
and I just thought that is not right. You know, that is not right.
I want to end this on Jamie because I have just been like the poem um running wild, running free with my horse Banderby. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but that poem, will you
Running
say it?
wild and living free in the wild, my Banderby. And it was a whole poem, but that's all I can remember from it. And so I've always remembered that because she was a very good poet, and I had a lot more of her writings, but I lost them when my car got rear-ended in a parking lot. No, I couldn't get through it into the trunk. I finally got through from the back seat. And by that time it had just, everything was soaked with rain. But that's the one thing I really remember. you know, and
Hmm.
how I love horses,
Hmm. I mean, it feels like she was the leader of the two of you. You were the little sister. I was a little sister. So I just totally relate to that. I see you two in my mind's eye walking to Oscar's convenience store, getting your penny candy, you know.
I'm that way, we'd walk down a side path and it was like through fields. It was like an alley pathway through the fields, and there were those trees that had those little puff balls that would fall on the ground. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
Hmm.
Step on them, they kind of make a poof sound,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the golf ball. And we just loved to walk down there and step on those as we went.
Hmm.
Yeah. And walking to school, Minnehaha, we would walk to school and we'd walk back. And,
Hmm.
we went to vacation Bible school together. We went to Disneyland together, the first and only time I've ever been to Disneyland. We went there, and, we both earned our money picking berries, doing that. And there wasn't much of anything we didn't do together, you know?
Hmm. So now you're trying to put together a bench
Yeah.
for Jamie.
Yeah.
And what do you want a memorial for her in your town, in Clark County, right?
Yeah. I'd like it to be marble. I saw a missing child's bench. It was marble, dark brown marble. And I would think that would just be beautiful. Jamie's color was brown. She loved that color.
Hmm.
And I would love if her face could be on the back of the bench, so when you sit there, the her face is there, and somehow there'd be a horse maybe above her, running,
Hmm.
or in the corner, but I almost think it would be better up above, and then her date of birth, and the day she was gone, and her name, and then maybe a quote, that small quote
Yeah.
about her Vanderby. I would love that.
So if there's people out there who could help with that or who, to reach out to you to help make that happen, should they go to your Facebook page,
Yeah,
Jamie's Facebook page?
yeah, they could go to Finding Jamie Grissom,
Hmm.
and they can send me a friend request on there, and I'll accept it, and then they could send me a message, you know, contact me that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that would be wonderful.
Well, Star, it is always a pleasure, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. All these, 2 years we've spent a lot of time talking, and here you are again, talking more about it, and I really appreciate everything that you do.
I appreciate everything you've done, Carolyn. I see how much work you put into it, and Brandon, overseeing things, and you've gone above and beyond, honestly. It's everything I really could have hoped for her, and the others.
Thank you, Star. Well, and our partners, KSL Podcasts and Lemonada Media, who are amazing in, whenever they do things related to true crime, they're always Trojan horses for societal issues that are deeper that we still are, working through. So anyway, thank you so much, Star.
Thank you too, Carolyn. Have a good day.